This is the Big Fish Cares Podcast. Big Fish Cares Podcast. And here's your host, Benny Fisher.
Can you believe it's been 75 episodes? This is the 75th episode. I don't even keep track of the episodes. My executive assistant, Allie, told me last week, she's like, you know you're at episode 75, and you know you have this amazing person coming on. I said, oh, who's the amazing person? And he said, Cole Taylor. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe we got Cole Taylor booked on this podcast. So that's pretty cool. Welcome to the show, Cole.
It's good to be here, brother. I'm excited to pour into you guys and encourage somebody today.
So Cole is a health and performance coach. He is the founder of The Starting Line, and he's a speaker. I met him doing a speaking gig, and I saw him on the Facebook there for a while, and I was always wondering who he was, and then I got to meet him in person. He is he's larger than life, the personality anyway.
Hey, I mean, just get excited about life. There's some joy there. Some
you do, man. Like,
things to celebrate.
Do you remember when we were talking in that little circle? Like, I forget, it was in between like sessions or whatever. It was me, you, a couple other guys, and yeah, that was
yeah. It's like Ryan
fun.
and JC, and yeah, it was a good crew of dudes.
Coach JC.
Hey, talk about energy there all day, baby.
How long you know that guy?
I've known him. We live in the same city. He lives like half a mile from me.
You're in Tulsa?
Yeah, I'm in Tulsa.
Did you just get freaking crushed and like, was there like a big windstorm here like in Tulsa?
Saturday night, 100-mile-an-hour winds. To
So,
knock my fence
I'm in
over.
the roofing industry, so like everyone's like, I'm like,
The
cool,
dream for you.
another shiny object. Go off to Tulsa, everybody.
Yep.
Everyone's leaving Florida now, and they're going to Tulsa.
Tulsa's getting all the storms right now. Dude, I love Tulsa, though. I actually just moved back here from Denver, so it's good to be back home in the old Midwest.
I'm actually going out to Denver next month. I'm doing a marketing workshop in Denver, man. That's a state where you can pretty much do anything you want in
You
Denver.
can do whatever you want.
How do you feel about that? All the legalization of like the psychedelics and the marijuana and all these healing treatments. Like, what's
Man, I don't know. Like, I think it's a fine line, and it depends on what it is. And it's not my thing. I don't enjoy really any of it, but I think if you're not a danger to yourself or to anyone else, like, all right, I mean, do what you want, but it's when it starts to get real dangerous and killing people. That stuff's, also you see in Denver, more people than you can count just passed out on the side of the road because of drugs. Like, I would walk to the gym on a daily basis and literally see like 10 homeless people.
well, like smoking weed or doing shrooms?
No, there would be like
They must be doing Oxycontin and heroin.
hardcore drugs.
Yeah. Well, that
like,
stuff's not legal in Colorado.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, there's drugs, there's needles all over the ground, is what I'll say. There's
All right, well, that's a different issue. There's needles all over the ground everywhere in this country.
yeah, but Denver. But what I'm saying
just
is
talking about the
there a direct
legalization.
correlation?
I'm talking about the legalization of drugs that can help you kind of transform your mind, like mind-altering drugs that can, like, in a positive way,
Just
right?
a psychedelic.
Like ketamine. There's like ketamine. Do you know anything about that?
I do, yeah. I have a lot of friends that actually do therapies in that way. So what I was kind of joking at is there a correlation between legalizing all those and then an uptick in other drugs as well? I don't know. But like, if you can control it and there's a professional guiding you through it, and that's what your jam is, great. I think there's a lot of science behind reprogramming the mind using that stuff. It's not mine, cup of tea necessarily, but I know tons of friends who've had great value out of it.
Well, your therapy is the health and the physical fitness, and what made you so hyper focused on starting a company like The Starting Line and doing health and performance coaching?
Yeah, so there's a lot to it. Some of it was just I loved sports, athletic health. Played football growing up. I played football through college in Division I sports. And so I've always loved that side of things and learning about that and how do I push my body further and how I feel. But kind of like what we talked about a little before the podcast started is a lot of what drives my passion for health is just the loss I've gone through. So I've lost almost all of my family members from health-related reasons. I think one uncle is left that is still here, and even he had a heart attack and just survived. So I lost my dad from a heart failure in high school. I lost my mom at a young age from birth complications. My dad's dad had a heart attack and passed away. His brother had a heart attack and passed away. All the men on my mom's side of the family all had heart attacks. And so it's something that's rampant. And so for me, and I could get into the story deeper and why it really motivates me, but seeing that and going through that, it's something that, one, I don't want to like go through that myself and leave that for my kids and put them through that, but others, I want to stop that for them as well, so they don't have to, one, leave their life early and miss out on that impact for their family, but two, so they can maximize what they do today.
That's wild. So you said so you lost your mom early.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah,
old
birth
were you when your mom
complications.
passed away?
Yeah, it was actually at birth.
Oh, so it was your
Yeah.
birth. It wasn't like a brother or
It was
sister.
my birth. Yeah, it was my birth. Uh-huh.
Wow. So you never
Yeah,
even got to meet your mom.
I
You don't even
didn't.
know who.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have stories from what your dad could share.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yeah.
have any brothers or sisters?
I do. So, really cool story. And for me, it's just a picture of God's grace because He knew what I needed, and I would have not been a great child as an only child. I need people around me. So, when I was a couple years old, my dad married someone, which is now technically my stepmom. I don't know any different because that's the only mom I ever knew. And so, I
Yeah.
have a stepmom. She had three daughters, and so my dad adopted them. My mom now adopted me, or stepmom, and so I got three adopted sisters that are still in my life.
When did you find out? Because I mean, if this happened when you were, I mean,
Yeah,
your dad got remarried when you were young,
a
right?
couple years old. Yeah.
So like, when did they tell you? Sit down and tell you, like, hey, this is not like your, this is
Yeah,
not your birth,
this is a
this is
weird
not your birth
family.
mom.
These are all weird random people. No, I think it was in like maybe third grade. I was like 10ish. I started asking some questions, and they weren't hiding it. They just, they just were waited until I was old enough to really understand. And I think I saw some pictures, and I asked who this was, and it was my stepmom, and she's like, "Well, actually, that's your birth mom, your biological mom." And I was like, "Wait, what?" She's like, "Okay, well, let's sit down. Let's get your dad. We're going to talk through this. It's actually, something that we've been wanting to tell you about." So it was a cool experience, and that was kind of opened the door for a lot of learning of my family history.
Well, at least you didn't have to wait till you're like,
Yeah,
25 or something,
you're
25 or something
30, and
like
you're
that,
like,
and do
"Wait,
like
this
a,
is not my
and do
family."
like one of those, and do like one of those. What do they do? Like those mouth swab tests on like,
Uh-huh.
what's that company called that does the DNA
Yeah,
test?
ancestry or DNA in your
Yeah.
cake. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least they came clean by third grade. That's not too terrible. So like you had like a family.
Yeah.
And how old were you when your dad died?
I was 17, so I was a junior in high
Wow.
school. Hmm.
And what was your relationship with your dad? And like, tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about your dad. What kind of work did he do? Like,
Yeah.
how big of an impact did he have on your life up until that point?
Yeah. He's incredible. So best friends, role model, like just unreal. Was the kind of dad that is when you're in high school, you feel like is too present. You're like, you're at all my practices, all my games, like just give me a break. But looking back, like that's exactly how I want to show up for my kids.
Mm.
Like he was there, extremely supportive, like loved me so well. I was just a punk teenager that didn't see it that way. Thought I was being like smothered, but really he was just trying to love me and support me, and
Well,
was
yeah, all the
amazing.
rest of us, our dads were never, they were busy
I know.
working too much. They could never come to any of our
Uh,
games. Some people don't even have dads,
uh,
like,
yeah, I see it as
and
a gift now.
and at the time you didn't like that. And at the time, like, I wish my dad was around more. We're both unhappy, but like, yeah, it's crazy how life works like that.
Uh-huh.
And we
And
just
so,
got done celebrating Father's Day yesterday, so I'm
yeah.
sure that's a tough day for you.
It is.
Um,
I think I'm on the back end of now. Like it comes in waves sometimes, and there's definitely tough moments. But after over a decade, like it's a something that more of I see it as a gift, and I'm just thankful for his life, thankful for what it's taught me. Because and we can get into this a little more, but like it's really shaped me to who I am and how I see this world now. But I was so close to him, like spent so much time with him. Whether it's throwing a football around or going to eat together or him coming to practices and games, just made an incredible impact. And he was in sales. He had done a bunch of stuff, kind of just all over the place, very entrepreneurial, sometimes an entrepreneur as well, but just was a great salesman. And so he had done college athletics apparel for a while. Like he worked for Reebok, then Coliseum, then Champions. Then he started to pivot because he wanted to do less travel, started to pivot into medical insurance sales. That's what he had done like the last 4 or 5 years of my life. And so, yeah, just kind of been all over the place in sales, and he had some side companies and stuff. And so I think he just had the flexibility because of a sales career to
yeah.
come to that stuff. But that's to kind of move into what you asked about, like how that really affected me. I think the biggest or the hardest part for me was not just losing the best friend or losing the role model. especially at that pivotal point of life where it's like you're stepping into being a man. I was about to enter my senior year of high school, make some big decisions. Like all of that was really tough. To me, the hardest part was actually at his memorial service. I had more people than I can count came up to me and said, "Hey, your dad had such an impact on my life. Like your dad loved me so well. Your dad walked me through, a tough time in my marriage, or your dad like remembered my kids' sports teams and their ages and like would always call and ask and see how I was. Like your dad just like had just an incredible gift of loving people. And just over and over, your dad made such an impact. And I say that like that's a beautiful thing, but the hard part for me was thinking like, wait, this guy died at 50 making this much impact. Like how much more impact could he have made for the second half of his life
Mm.
if he would have taken care of himself? And so usually the message I preach when I go talk to people is, what are you missing out on by not being the best version of you? And it's a warning that I kind of give. Health, yes, in your physical body, but really in any area. Like don't miss out on the impact that you could be making either today or in the future because you don't take care of yourself today. So it's really shaped my perspective. It shaped how I see life. Definitely see life as a gift, but I also have this, this story of pain that drives me for a purpose to help other people.
Wow. I remember one of my best friends growing up in high school. He lost his, and his dad was an ex NFL football player. He did like
Wow.
1 or 2 years for the Colts, and then he was a State Farm insurance guy. Mr. Delaney was also a Sunday school teacher. And I remember my freshman year of high school. We were I think we were at Cedar Point the week before,
Hmm.
and he was always the kind of guy that had the boat, and he'd always take everybody out on the boat. And then next Saturday, man, we got the call that he dropped dead of a uh, blood clot, from a knee surgery, I think
Wow.
that he had.
Hmm.
Because I hear a lot about that, blood
It's
clots
tough.
and things like that. So talk about your dad a little bit. Like when you say like he
Yeah.
could have taken better care of himself, obviously hindsight's 2020. You probably
Sure.
analyzed everything. You're probably looking back, like,
Hmm.
tell me like what it looked like. Because I mean, salesmen.
Sure.
We're on the road a lot,
Hmm.
we're trying to,
Yeah.
keep it together. We also got a little bit of money in our pocket. So,
Yeah.
we kind of like, food's not scarce.
Uh, uh,
There's always like these
yeah.
steak dinners everywhere. And like,
So yeah, I think there's two sides to this. One, I think everyone can take care of themselves at a better level, and so I'm not necessarily dogging on him, saying like it's his fault he did this. Like there was some genetic stuff that played into this for sure. Like there's
well, it
you
sounds
know
like if everybody keeps dropping dead, man,
right.
I'm
So
actually scared to even come visit you again. Does it doesn't rub off like through like the air, does it?
there's no, it's not contagious.
I mean, is
Uh,
there other stories like this where like every single family member, like on both
well,
sides, like pass away this early? I mean, that's crazy.
so no, the men on my mom's side of the family had heart failure, but didn't necessarily pass away from it. But
Okay.
yeah, this is the most I've ever seen of this many heart failures in one family line.
Because you go around the country talk about this stuff publicly, like you would think people
Yeah.
would come up to you and be like, "Oh yeah, that's me too." Like no one's coming up to you.
Well, so people come up to me and say like, "Hey, I lost a couple family members too," but everyone's all, yeah, no one's got the level of like both sides of the family, tons of family members. It's a
Hmm.
lot. And so I say that to say is like to give him some grace, but also to say there's some
Yeah.
truth of grace is there's some genetic stuff obviously to play into that. Truth is that, there's a lot of his life that wasn't consistent. Like, he had a dad bod. Like he worked out decently consistent. Like he would go run sometimes and go work out, and it was semi a priority, but it wasn't like a pillar for him. That was a foundation. And his diet just wasn't consistent enough for his body to be healthy in the way that it should be. And I say that from a place of I have another friend that had a massive heart attack too, and it was a genetic thing, and he's in incredible shape. And it's very well. So he actually tells the story like this: is he's like, "There's me, and there's one of my really close friends. Both of us are the same age, have the same genetic heart failure thing. He is now a vegetable. I am in still great shape, and the doctor told me the only reason I survive this is because my body is as resilient as it is because I work out so consistently for so long and I take care of my diet. And so I say that from like there's always something we can prevent, and maybe it wouldn't have saved his life, but I think it's a challenge for me is like regardless of what genetics say, I'm going to do everything I can to prepare my body and make it last as long as possible.
I think that the more I learn about life and journeys, and I feel like all those people in your family, both on your mom's side and your dad's side, probably all experienced, awesome lives, up until the
Uh-huh.
point that they were terminated. But
Right.
all of that's part of your story now,
Hmm.
and you're able to take that story and really make an impact. I'm sure when you give those talks, I mean, people are paying attention because, I
Yeah.
mean, you can definitely see it in your attitude, your enthusiasm, like your firepower for it.
Right.
We were talking a little bit before the show about, how people's trauma and this, loss, is maybe your trauma, your childhood trauma, and maybe even as people continue to pass, like it's just always kind of with you.
Yeah.
How have you turned that pain into purpose? And like, what made you decide to get so
Yeah.
like laser focused about it?
Sure. I think everyone, when they go through any sort of loss or trauma or painful situation, is left with the choice of what they do with this. Like it becomes a fork in the road of I can either decide to let this thing crush me and I'm forever the person that everyone feels sorry for, of like, man, I hate that that happened to him. Like, wonder what happened to that guy, like rough life. Or I can take the other turn and say, instead of the person that everyone feels sorry for, I'm the person that inspires others to come through their pain. And I think we all have that choice to say, like, hey, this thing isn't going to crush me or be an anchor. It's actually going to propel me to the future, and I'm going to let it drive me. And instead of it's a weight that weighs me down every day, this is something that it's a fire inside of me that pushes me to do more. Whether it's to carry on their legacy or to help others not go through that, whatever that is. I just chose the path on the right and just said, hey, like I refuse to be the person that this was the end of my story. Like I'm choosing today to make this something that actually becomes something beautiful and inspires others. And I think everyone has that choice. And I could get into probably a ton of practical stuff too, but to me, like that's really the bare bones of it is you have a choice and you decide the life. Like, it's like you seeing life like a game of poker. It's like we can't necessarily determine the game or the hand that we're dealt, but we can determine how we play that hand. And over time, the person who wins is not the person who got the best hands. It's whoever played their hand best. And so I see life just that same way as, hey, I've been given this terrible situation. Maybe I was born with bad genetics and have this, this medical history that's terrible. Or maybe I was born with no family, or maybe I was, born to poverty, or, had a terrible example or abusive. Like that was the hand you're dealt. But the question is, how are you going to play it? And if you continue to play enough good hands, you actually begin to look back and realize that, like, I don't even remember what the first hand I got. Like I chose a new life.
You're so young. How old are you?
28, almost 29. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's hard for me to believe because I feel like when I talk to you and like when I hang out with you, I feel like you're like, I don't know, like I'm 41, 40, I will be
Right.
42 soon. And I feel like you have that same type of wisdom of like,
Sure.
us young old guys is what I
Yeah.
put myself into. I'm like a young old guy because now I
Yeah.
hire people that are like half my age. I could be their dad.
Yeah. Well, I've gone through a lot of life in my 28 years, but
Yeah, that's
also,
incredible, man.
yeah.
Like you're also a pastor too. Tell me a little bit about
What?
that.
Well, so I grew up my stepmom was a pastor. My middle sister is a pastor as well. They started a church, ran a church, still do. Um, you know, uh, their biological dad before that, the one that had passed away. That's why my dad ended up stepping into their family. He was a pastor too, and so they, kind of ended up getting adopted into a family of pastors, and that was something that was modeled for me. And I saw the impact that they were able to create, and the people they were able to help, and the life change that led to. And I was like, I like that. Like, to me, that's the best way I can help people, and so that's kind of what pulled me into it.
Yeah, so I think there's always those three pillars, right? Mind, body, and spirit. Sounds like
Hmm.
you have the spirit, you got that, you got a little head up there, and you got a little head up
Yeah,
on the body.
yeah.
What do you do for your mind? How do you complete that triangle, man? Like we're tell me,
So
I mean, are you dating a psychologist or something right now? Or like what's going on with the love life?
But funny enough, I'm kind of the weird when you ask, like, mind, body, spirit. I'm the weird athlete that is actually a nerd. So I played Division 1 football, but I was actually on a full ride academic scholarship, and I just like was that weirdo.
So
And
you
so
were
I've
born
always
with the mind.
I was born with the mind somehow. I don't understand it. It's just kind of a gift in some way. But I've always been passionate about, like, honestly, the stuff that excites me more about health is not the workouts and the meal plans. Yes, we teach that stuff, but I've kind of become really the mindset coach. It's like it's the life change. So all I preach is identity, beliefs, because that identity shapes your actions, your beliefs shape your behaviors. And so that's where most of my conversation goes, and where the research goes. To your point, whenever you met me, the girl I was dating was a trauma informed therapist as well, and so I am attracted to that kind of stuff and love learning about that.
Yeah, it's interesting because the more I do, like, I obviously it's no secret I struggle with my weight. I feel like I'm working really hard, and I've hyper focused on, the other two areas of my life,
Right.
the spirit and the mental. And it's
Yeah.
like, man, it's like I got this physical part that like is
Sure.
basically part of like my trauma or baggage that I've been
Mm-hmm.
carrying with me. I
Yeah.
actually didn't start to gain weight until I was probably 19 years old.
Hmm.
I left my flew the coop, right? My mom and my
Yeah.
mom and dad were strict, strict Baptist. I wasn't allowed to do anything. Wasn't allowed, the kitchen was shut. The kitchen was shut down at 5, mostly because it was expensive to feed a family.
Yeah.
Um, and then as soon as I was able to go out and sell things and make money, I was like, oh, steak dinners, beer. Oh, I'm just gonna like And then I got a girlfriend, and then I broke up with her, and the next thing you know, man, I didn't know how to handle that.
Uh-huh.
And I just started eating, and I just started eating. Eating food and drinking was like my first, like, what I would consider, like, I don't know, worldly addictions, right? And then I gained, like, I went from, like, I think I graduated high school like at 175, 180.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't like athletic. I mean, I didn't like, but I wasn't like, fat. I was, wearing regular clothes and stuff like that. Then I went to like 220, and I was like, all right, this is getting a little bit weird. You know what I mean? A little chubby, but like, I can still deal with it. Because then as I started learning sales,
Uh-huh.
I was able to like get things that I wanted anyway. It didn't matter what I looked like, what I
Right.
mean? Because like, I don't know, like I learned how to use my mouth and my mind to be able to get what I needed. I didn't have to like be pretty about it,
Mhm.
and but then I went from like 220 to 320, like over, like within like 3 years, like, cause I was working at a cubicle. So I got done selling cars. I got fired from every car job I ever had.
Right.
And then my mom told me to go get a real job. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go work at GE, and I'm going to go get this job inside of the cubicle doing, I was working for the credit card company. And then I got promoted into the mortgage business before the crash in 2008. And man, and then I went to like 320, 330. And like, that was big. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I didn't do anything about it. I remember I stayed there for like a long time. Just stayed there forever. And then moved to Pittsburgh, got into roofing with my uncle. My uncle's a big guy. There's the obesity does, I think, run in my family. I feel like there's a lot of, we have a consistent group of heavy hitters at the uncle and parent level.
Yeah.
And then I got married and had a kid and was trying to run my business. And then I started doing drugs, and I was like, but not the kind of drugs that made you lose weight. Like kind of drugs that like, I just did drugs to feel better. And then I would eat more after that, because like that was the legal drug you could do in front of people.
Yeah.
Well, you could do it in front of people, and no one was really like judging you too bad.
No.
I mean, if you start snorting lines of like Oxycontin at mom's house, like it's not good. But you can literally eat as much as you want, and like no big deal, right? And so it's like, food, like no one's looking at you and being like, oh man, like, that's so bad. Like the world, doesn't do that to you. And so then after COVID, I ended up getting divorced. I ended up, reshaping. That's when I met Ryan, like right before COVID. Started to learn sales, trying to teach sales, right? Because I already knew how to do sales. Got the sales thing, got that delegated to a team. Had more time than to work on me. Met a girl that was, more into health and fitness and yoga and meditation. I ended up losing like 75 pounds.
It's awesome.
The year of COVID.
Yeah.
Like COVID was the best year ever for me.
Yeah. It's a great year for me too.
I went from 375 down to 300.
It's incredible.
And problem is I'm still plateaued right at 300. So like, and it's like, I got about, you'll probably tell me, and I'm sure all the doctors will tell me I need to be back down to like 180, 200. But I'd be happy like at 250. I feel like I think I'd look weird if I was like 200 pounds, just because I've been like carrying it so long and so much.
When you say, I don't know if you want to take the conversation this way, but
why not, man? Hey, listen,
my brain goes to coaching questions now.
Go. Like because here's the thing: if I can be open and honest and vulnerable, and I know there's people out there, because again, trauma and like, and there's a reason that we handle things the way we do. And I know how when I beat the drug addiction, I mean, listen, I used to do Oxycontin and I mean, I've even done heroin before. And if you can stop doing that, Like that's just a behavior. And the behavior, and there's a mindset, like you said to your point earlier. There's something in your mindset that says, okay, like where else are you gonna get the dopamine to where you don't need to go do that? You got to go get it from somewhere else, right? And for me right now, the last thing I feel like I got to conquer is this like just this going to work out, because working out to me is boring.
Yeah.
I just get bored doing the same thing over and over again. I get bored. I mean, I'm at 75 episodes on the podcast, and we're going to take a 90-day break here because like, I'm not saying I'm bored, but I need like a new focus. Like I need to like figure out, like, are we going to go deeper in conversations? Are we going to just have, more guests that people are interested in? Like, how am I going to do this podcast different than I did the first 75? So I'm going to take a 90-day break and kind of re-energize and get focused up. But like, how do I do this in life?
That's so normal though. Like you have the same personality I do. That's very one track mind.
ADHD, so I don't know if that helps you. Yeah, like
no, it does. I'm the same exact way, and I also get bored with workouts. Like I think for you need to have a clear goal and something. Instead of trying to lose weight, you're training for something. Like you're training because this is what you do. I think about it this way. Like if I sign up, and I'm not saying this is what you need to do, but let's say I sign up for a 5K or some kind of race. When I put my money on that, event, I sign up, I put the date on the calendar. Now, if I go talk about it and tell people, I'm not saying, hey, I'm trying to lose 20 pounds. No, I'm training for a 5K. It's not like I'm trying to run it. No, I'm training because I've already committed to it.
You mean like go on Facebook and do like all the stuff that like,
Well, like what I'm saying is even if like you had a conversation with a friend, like, or even the conversation you have with yourself, you don't say, hey, I'm training, or you don't say, hey, I'm trying to run a 5K. No, I've already like signed up for it. I've already put my money. So if you talk about it or you tell yourself I'm training because I'm running a 5K, there's a different frame language there. And so one, I think you actually need like something to be pursuing physically, like some goal. But even if it's not like a competition, let's say it is a weight loss number. The pivot for me and why I've been able to stay consistent is to set an identity first and say, here's who I am. And for me, it's an athlete. Maybe for you, it's a healthy person, whatever you want to call it. But I went back to being an athlete. And now the decisions I make when it comes to my workouts, my sleep, my, diet, my, anything in that circle is all, hey, because I'm an athlete, I do this. Like I'm training like this. And so it's a confirmation of that versus like, oh man, I'm really trying to lose weight. And because that identity now shapes those actions, I've been able to stay way more consistent. So I think for you, you've got to figure out like, and this actually goes, we could dig into the trauma side or the mindset side there too, but that's the whole foundation. Because most people say, hey, here's where I am. Like I weigh 300 pounds. Well, here's how I want to be. I want to get to 200. They say, well, how do I get there? Well, first you got to ask like, who do I need to become first? Like what's the identity I need to carry? Because then that'll shape the long-term actions. Most people just try to do the actions. They may or may not get a result and they fall off.
And here's the crazy part. Like I know that because like I've done it on my business life, right? Like on my family life, right? Like I'm the best dad ever now. I'm the best husband ever now. Awesome. I'm like the best businessman now. Like I am like, I've done all that. And it's like, all right, now I feel like that's just the next piece, right? I'm closer to God than I've ever been.
Beautiful.
Before, but it's like, all right, this next piece, and it's like I hyper focus. So like, I did, I did God first. Over the last 3 years, I did God first, and then I started to lose the weight. I became a better dad and a better businessman because of it. Yeah. Right. The first time, but then it's like now I'm at this plateau because spiritual life's feeling good, and that's not always where you want it to be, right? Business life's feeling pretty good. It's not always where you want it to be. Sure. But it's like, dang, this little pesky, like this old body that I got that people see, like isn't like what's inside of me anymore. Sure. And it's like, and I have all this energy. I never get sick. I never like I except for like one day last week I did for the first time in like 5 years, which was crazy. But like a lot of my friends, like Joseph Hughes, like you're friends with Joe Hughes, right? Yeah. Like this dude's in this competition, this 100-mile run, like, and like I want to be in a competition like that. Yeah. I can't even run 3 miles. Like,
you don't have to if that's not your thing. And I think,
well, it's like it's not, but it's like I see all these guys, right? Like on social media, right? Like, there's a bunch of you guys out there that I'm friends with, and it's like, man, because I can see that part. You know what I mean? Like, like most people can't see on the inside of me. They can kind of sense it. Yeah. But it's like, man, like you can just see it. You can see all the bad parts of me. Like all the bad parts of me now you can just see, like I'm exposed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's tough is a lot of people have internal stuff that no one can see. And
well, right. And I know a lot of guys that take, A lot
Yeah.
of guys take it out at the gym, and they're the most craziest lunatics ever that are in the best shape ever, and that's
Uh-huh.
cool because like they got one side down, but it's like
Sure.
how do you be balanced, right? How do you hit the
Mhm.
trifecta, right?
Yeah. So I think that would be the questions I would ask you is like, first off, you need practical. Like, do you have a plan to move from where you are now to where you want to be? Like, it's going to be data driven decisions. Like, it actually is math from there. But then the hard part is not sticking, is actually sticking to the math. And that's where the identity and the like actual traumas will start to come up, is because you'll start to self sabotage yourself. Like, oh, I can't eat the
Yeah.
food today.
Like,
It's like, it's not hard to
there's
put the food
not.
in your mouth.
Well, yeah, the problem is like, yeah, I'm not planning for the food because I sense it. Like, when
Uh-huh.
I plan for the food,
Yeah.
I remember when I lost 75 pounds. I mean, we
Hmm.
planned for the food; it was full. Oh,
Yeah.
now she's a little bit busy taking care of the baby. We're
Uh-huh.
not, we're not as planned for. But that's just me telling an excuse.
Yeah.
I can
Sure.
pay for anything I want.
Yeah.
I can go to Whole Foods anytime I want.
Yeah.
But then I travel a lot. Then there's that. Like, see me, like I want to be so perfect on a plan
Sure.
to like where you send me all the meals or whatever. But then as soon as I
Uh-huh.
travel, I'm like, oh crap! Like, now what am I gonna do? I have to take a cooler with me? Am I gonna have to
Yeah.
do like I don't know?
So these are all problems to be solved, and I think you
Yeah.
just got to shift your language to like, how can I versus can I?
Yeah, no, I'm
I
just
don't think I.
explaining kind of my
Yeah.
process. I mean, you've
Uh-huh.
heard it a million times, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to give all the people at home, like,
Uh-huh.
hey, look, these are the hurdles I actually went through in my life. Like, I know
Yeah.
mentally, like, I could like have Cole's face up here, and I could spit out the same game plan. Like, I know how to
Sure.
create it, but it's like doing it. It's like
Uh-huh.
doing it. So how do you get a
Yeah.
guy
It
like me
takes
to do it?
it takes a couple things, and I think going back to what I just said first is you've got to start with the identity. Because what happens is most of us, like when we're just doing a program like 75 hard, for example, maybe you finish it. And even if you do, what happens is if like you actually finish it, what's the first thing people do after they finish 75
Probably
hard?
go get a cheesecake and
Yeah,
like,
it's like,
like,
"Whoa, I can
yeah.
go back to normal." They didn't actually become a different person. They were just doing a
They just
program.
did it for Facebook or for like
Yeah.
their buddies were doing it. They felt
Yeah.
pressured into it. They did it just out of being stubborn. Like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
gonna do it anyway. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So the lasting results has to be an internal thing, and letting those internal drive the actions. And so I always talk about 4 V's. Like, if I want lasting results, I have to first visualize. I have to see that person. Like, okay, let's say it's a healthy person. We'll describe it as that. Like, hey, I have to start on a daily basis visualizing. And this could be any area too, by the way. It could be relationships, could be business, anything I want to grow in. But I have to see that person first. Without a vision, people perish, is what the Bible I read says. If I don't have that
Hmm.
direction, I can't get there. And so I have to see him first. Like, on a daily basis, visualize till I can feel it. I'm a healthy person. I see it. I see how that person looks, how they feel, how they talk, like, so at a deep level. And then second, I need to vocalize. Like, I need to actually speak that out, and confirm that with my words. Scripture I read also says death and life are in the power of the tongue. And so I can actually like shape my life with that. I can give you science to visualization and vocalization too, of how when you visualize things, your reticular activating system actually goes and looks for and finds it. And there's plenty of studies that confirm that. Same thing with vocalization. There's
I
a
believe it. Listen,
Yeah.
I've done all that except with my own body. Because you know why?
Sure.
I
Uh-huh.
think I think I'm starting to realize it. I never seen what healthy bodies look like probably growing
Sure.
up, like in my family.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to other stuff, and then I got behind on other stuff, and then to fix that stuff, I've done that.
Yeah.
But I've yet to be able to visualize what a perfect Ben Fisher body
Mhm.
looks like, I think.
Yeah.
Like I can look at your
That's
body and be like, "Oh, that looks cool," but like
Sure.
that's not me. Like I don't know. Like
Sure.
like how do I get that visualization of what a health? Because Ben Fisher hasn't been healthy for a long
I
time.
think I think honestly sometimes it has to be borrowed. Like, you have to borrow someone else's, like, like kind
I
of
gotta
see.
find a good looking. I gotta find a good looking, sexy stud. I want to be like.
Right. So like for me starting off, honestly, like even when I played college football, I didn't have abs. Like, I kind of had a soft abs ish, but like I have a very defined six pack now. And
Well,
last,
now it is, dude. Listen, I just saw a picture of you, and I was like, dude, that dude. When I met him 6 months ago, it didn't look like that.
but I've been dialed in on this, like this process I'm talking about. Like, you talk to my business partner, he's been shredded his whole life, like just been a professional bodybuilder. Me, I've gone through the up and down, and I've also been one track minded, where like all in on business or all in on my family or faith or whatever. Like, and so I'm speaking from stuff that's actually worked for me as well. And so like vulnerable, I struggled with it too. That's my coping mechanism. I never struggle with drugs. I don't drink that much. Food has always been my biggest struggle. And so for this to actually work, like I had to actually borrow someone else's, like almost in my mind, put their body on my face or my face on their body. And that's what I saw on a daily basis. If I could just look like that until you start to see your body respond, and then you can kind of shape it and adapt it. But starting off, it's just like, see what I can see. And that's at least a direction. And that direction pulls you forward. And so I think for you, you just have to like, I don't know what it looks like for me to be super healthy. So let's just make something up. Like,
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing, like for me and for guys, I mean, I don't know, maybe some guys are different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not trying to get buff to try to like, to get more people to like me or get to like, I'm not trying to be like, I'm not trying to go to the beach and be like, oh yeah, man, look at me.
Sure.
So I think that's like another thing that kind of like, it could be like a little bit of like a harder thing for me. Cause it's like, I'm trying to get healthy so I can live longer, so I can make a bigger impact on my family, on my businesses, on the world. Right. Like, I got to and that's hard to visualize, like what because that's like a feeling. It's not necessarily like I do have a vision board, but like it doesn't really. It needs to have more
but
Arnold pictures on there.
I think you got to shift that perspective too, because you could say the same thing about that with your family too. Like, well, I'm not trying to have a wife and kids just so I roll up to the business event and people think I'm a family man. Like you can also flip that same script in your head as just say like, no, I'm doing this for me because I want to feel confident. I want to like how I look. Like if it's an external thing for others, sure too.
So does that make sense? Problem I got. Yeah. I got another problem. Because I've been so big for the last 20 years, I've figured out how to get confidence even through it.
Good.
Which is kind of like, I feel like it's self-sabotaging me now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you've done it long enough to where you've got a lot of programming in your head that's going to solve it.
I'm programmed.
This process honestly is a mental reprogramming thing. Like on a daily basis, seeing that person, speaking it out consistently. So that's visualize and vocalize.
Yeah. What's the next
number 3 is vote. Based off James Clear, Atomic Habits, every action I take is a vote for the person I'm becoming. And so this is where, to me, the difference happens between like faking it till I make it or trying to get somewhere versus training is, hey, I've already seen with my mind I'm a healthy person. I'm already speaking it out as I am healthy. I am healthy. I'm a healthy person. I am consistent. Whatever those affirmations or those things look like for you is now when you go to make a decision, you ask yourself, does this lead me towards or away from that person? And can I just stack enough votes in that direction where I move towards that? Because most people are like, oh, they mess up once and like, dang it. See, I told you, I always fail. I always mess up and gain the weight back when it was just one decision. Versus if you do that once, it's like, oh, I ate the brownie or whatever. Like, I don't know, just use that as an example. Usually if I do that now, I can just look back and be like, hey, but the last 3 weeks, I've been way more votes for the healthy person than I did for the brownie or the non-healthy person. And so, the data says I'm actually a healthy person. And so once you start to have that mental frame as how do I just stack more votes towards that person, and you do that over time, it's no longer really even a conversation. The results just become to reflect that action. So it's almost the be, do, have thing is like I'm shifting the identity, the actions just follow, and then I get what I want. And so visualize, I've got to see it. Vocalize, I've got to speak it out and use that as a tool to confirm it because it actually changes your body on a cellular level. Like use the imagination of like you see those girls sing the really high notes and it shatters glass. Like our words and the intonation of our voice actually shapes the atmosphere. It's pretty cool.
Well, that's what Coach JC always talks about, right? He's big on like the positive affirmations, man. Huge. Like Tony Robbins, like I've been to some Tony Robbins stuff. I mean, you got to wake up every morning and basically, read it, say it out loud, see it, visualize it. Vote. And then what's after vote, man? What are you going to do after vote?
Number 4 is vicinity. Like putting yourself in the vicinity of others or surrounding myself with people that already embody that identity. That's the last piece is the glue that holds it all together is because you're never going to be perfect. You're going to fall off. You're going to self-sabotage. The secret though is having that like boundary around you of people that already carry that identity. It's like the rule of 5. But in a negative way, if you flip it this way, is if I'm around 5 overweight people, I will be the 6th. However, if I'm around 5 super healthy in shape people, like I guarantee you will be the 6th person. Like either they're going to kick you out.
That's why I haven't gained weight because like this whole COVID thing has got me more remote. Like a lot of my good friends now are people like all over the country.
Right.
Like I don't actually have any friends locally anymore.
Sure.
And all my friends I think I do hang out with, they're all in pretty good shape. But like, like Joe, I talked to Joe Hughes like twice a week. He actually said he's like, I'm worried about you, Fish. I'm like, I'm worried about myself too, man. I gotta get going. I
Yeah.
said, but it's so hard when you're like behind this freaking computer all day and like I'm not with the people. Cause I guarantee if I was with the people, like I'd just be following you along your workout, dude. I'd be talking your ear off while we were
Yeah.
doing whatever. Like,
Yeah.
and it'd be fun. So
It's going to take some intentionality.
I gotta go find some new friends that locally.
Sure. Or like, there's other ways virtually too to put yourself in that community. There just has to be accountability and communication mechanisms, even if you don't see them in person, that they can hold you to that. Because as you know, you begin to identify and embody their thoughts, characteristics, their traits. Like when I go back home, like to eat with my family or whatever, they're like, eat the cookie. You like, you look great. Versus like, my business partner whose office is right here, or some of my other friends like Nick Alfano or JC or those guys. If I say I'm trying to reach a certain goal and I've committed to not do anything and I go grab the cookie, they're like, "What are you doing? Like, get that out of here! Like you're better than that." Like just that accountability is so huge because they're holding you to the person you already committed to, and you have so much trust for them because they already do it too. Like they look the way I want to look, so it's not like someone that's extremely unhealthy telling me to put the cookie down because I'm like, you shut up. But it's like JC comes up and says that. I'm like, oh, you're right, bro. Like I am better than that.
What are you doing, man? Come on, baby. Dude's nuts.
But
He was on a
so
podcast.
cool.
You guys want to hear the JC podcast? Scroll back through. He was probably 20, 30 episodes ago.
He's the man. But what's so cool about this too is it actually makes it way easier. So I like to imagine, I think it's called a peloton, but like if you're watching like the Tour de France, these big groups of these biking teams that ride together, when they are riding with the rest of the group, it's actually way easier for them to ride because they draft off of each other. The ones that are very difficult is when they try to pull ahead and go off on their own and pull out. That it actually becomes way harder. And so the same thing for this. And it's why, like, whenever I go speak for a mastermind, I always like push pretty hard here. And I'm like, hey, do not leave this group, because what'll happen is you'll separate yourself and you'll start to fall behind, and to catch back up, it's way harder versus just coasting with the rest of the group. Like the group will pull you ahead.
You need that herd mentality.
It's exactly what it is. And so it's accountability metrics. It holds you to that identity, but it actually makes it easier because you can draft off others. When I feel weak, I can pick someone else's strength. Whenever they feel weak, I can encourage them, and it becomes this like winning feedback loop. So visualize, I have to see it. Vocalize, I have to speak it and use that tool to reframe my brain. Vote is now that I have that identity like very clearly in my grasp, I can start to make every decision by, does this lead me towards or away from that person? And then lastly, I've got that accountability metrics of the vicinity of other people to hold me to it and make that way easier.
I don't know what the world would do with like a 225 Rip Ben Fisher.
It'd be world changing.
I don't even know, like if it'd be able to, they went the top would blow off or something.
Well, for guys like you though, that like you crush it in every area, and there's one that like is not awful, but you just know that could be better. Like
way better.
You are the type of person that like, obviously you're already making an incredible impact. Like you're serving so many people, helping people, you're inspiring people, but like when you become that version of you that is just clicking on all cylinders, like there's a new level of you unlocked, and it opens up. Like I know this for myself. When I'm out of shape versus where I am now, there's something in you that clicks of like every single area is dialed in. The energy you bring's different. The inspiration you carry on the outside. Like I just look at you and I'm like, okay, let's say the impact you're making right now is a 10 out of 10. Well, what happens when that new you is unlocked? Like just the scale explodes of what you can start to do for other people.
Yeah, one, it's hard too because it's like I never felt this good before ever in my life. Yeah. Today I felt better than any day in the rest of my world. Like I feel like I keep like doing these little peaks, But then it's like, but I also know, I mean, you can't be like feeling that great carrying 100 pounds around. You've just conditioned yourself. But then like what happens when you drop that, have all that, and then your energy is where it's at, and then boom, like what kind of new levels?
What's possible?
Like, Yeah.
So that's the question I always ask is, what are you missing out on by you not being the best version of you? Because there's a new level of stuff being unlocked, whether it's your business growth or it's just a level of impact. Like my dad, I said, he had so much more that he could have done, but there was an area that he was lacking on.
Yeah, that's wild to think about. I have to visualize that.
Imagine what the world would look like with a Benny that's clicking on all cylinders.
Well, I think here's the other thing. So many people now are just like finding out, you know how it's like, every
Yeah.
every year, like new people enter your life, new people follow you or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't know like the 10-year old version of you. They
Sure.
might you might tell them a story. They're like, oh yeah, that didn't really
Yeah.
happen. But like someone like me, like, you can't fake. Like you can't like you can't. That's the one thing you can't
Sure.
fake, right? Like
Sure.
you can't fake your body.
Right.
Like, I can
Yeah.
look at you and I can see you're shredded, right? And you can look at
Sure.
me and see I'm a little pudgy. Like you
Sure.
can't fake that, right? Like, I mean, that's, it's that's the piece that for a lot of people, if they didn't believe what I was saying before about overcoming this and overcoming
Yeah.
that and transforming your life in this way, well, when they see that,
Mm-hmm.
it's for those like those laggards. I feel like the people
Yeah.
that really need almost Jesus or God to like punch them in the face to
Uh-huh.
like, believe in something.
Yeah.
Maybe people are just waiting for me,
Sure.
to be like, oh yeah, if you can do all this other stuff, why can't you lose weight? Yeah, that's probably like what half
Sure.
of them are saying.
Well, I
But
think about you, and you mentioned this, your ability to use your mouth and your mind to sell people and encourage people. Like you've already made such an impact doing that. Imagine what happens because honestly, the world is so superficial and judgmental.
oh yeah,
And there's a barrier that we have to fight through whenever, like, if even if it's not being overweight, it could be I just dress poorly or I have a
well, there's
bad
a lot of fake
haircut.
people out there too
Sure.
that are saying the same things I'm saying, but don't actually
Uh-huh.
believe it or actually living it.
Sure.
And how do you tell the difference? Well, you can't really if you don't get to know the person.
Uh-huh. Sure. But I think for you,
You'll
it's
believe a
like,
little bit quicker when I come out on stage and I take the size 40 pants and then we put the
yeah.
size 34s on.
Yeah. Well, whenever you can tell things from your own story, like it's, this, it's
Oh
so,
yeah.
so much more impactful. But I think if you have the mouth and the mind, and then all of a sudden you show up with that proof of here's my body too, like you have a whole new level of trust and inspiration for people.
Yeah, my 9-year-old's watching too, so he definitely made it. He made comments about when I lost the first 75. He was
Yeah.
like, "Wow."
Yeah.
So like I
And
know
you're
the
setting the
kids,
example for him too. And I think
kids are
about that.
watching.
Yeah, I think about that, like, and not to be saying this as a downer, but like,
That's all right.
let's say you don't make a change. What example does that set for him of like, well, maybe like obviously he wasn't bad and he fixed that and that's super cool, but like it was kind of mediocre the rest of his life. Like, is that all fishers do? Like, do we that's all we can do?
Yeah,
Or, for you obviously can change that script and say, hey, no, like we're excellent in everything we do. Like we don't carry mediocrity in any area.
I like that. I need someone like you in my ear every day, like
Come on.
reminding me of that.
I'll send you a voice memo every morning.
JC does the voice memos. He like sends me a voice memo like once a month.
Uh-huh.
They're
Is
so
he-
encouraging too, man.
It is.
You guys all go to the same church down there or something, man? Like
We
what
used
is it?
to. The church I used to work at, he went to.
Yeah, you guys are incredible humans. I don't know what they got in the water down there in Tulsa, Oklahoma right now, but
We've got a couple other good buddies that run great coaching business and are super inspirational too. Here, something.
so let's
something about
let's
the
talk
Jesus
about so like mindset's one thing, right? Going
Right.
to and then having some type of regular. Obviously, you need some type of activity. I'm sure, there's different ways to do that. My thing because I grew up and I graduated high school in '99 and like back in those days everybody was the meatheads were the ones that were like eat cans of tuna. Go to Bally Total Fitness, do all this, get jacked, do all arms, don't worry about your legs, like everybody's, and then like that got programmed. I'm like, man, that sounds awful. Like this is like the worst thing ever. So like that was my like introduction to like, trying to be healthy. Right.
Yeah.
And then now, so it's like, it's almost like, all right, how do I get myself to go over to, I think I even have a membership at, I don't know if you guys have Crunch. You guys have Crunch Fitness or it's like a 24-hour gym or something. I don't know. Like just to go over there though, there's a bunch of machines, treadmills, like I can't even get my butt over there to go hit the treadmill for 45 minutes because I'm always like, now there's a baby, now there's office call. It's like I'm just making excuses for myself. I hear myself thinking about the excuses that I make.
There's a couple.
I've never missed a business meeting ever in my life. But I missed a gym meeting all the time.
You got to put it in your calendar and treat it like a business meeting.
I mean, look, we got 75 podcasts in a row. Just think if I did 75 workouts in a row.
Seriously. Well, that's literally what we talked about in our community call today. Is one of the big things I challenge them is to treat their training just like a business meeting, is to put it in their calendar ahead of time, block it off. That is reserved time. Like I will not reschedule that. And the only option is just like some business meetings. If I can swap, if I get other people to agree to it too, but it's on the calendar, like that has to get done. That's a non-negotiable. And so you might have to start treating it like that and have some accountability around it of like, I will put that on my
Well,
calendar.
It's the accountability because I put stuff on my calendar before because my calendar is full. And anytime
Sure.
I put Ben stuff on there, it's just Ben.
Uh-huh.
And I will lie, cheat, and steal for myself.
Well,
I mean, literally, I will.
that's
Like,
why having an accountability partner of some sort is so huge. Whether
they're
it's just
trying to get me to blog right now, and I can't even like blog by myself because they put it on because it's a solo event, like me like sitting down to write or even like video into like something. It's like the biggest. So hard for me to do anything completely by myself that like no one else is showing up to because I'll be like, oh. Yeah, I'll get to it later. That voice, I can still feel it. It's still in there. It's like, oh, you'll make it up. You'll do 20 of them in a row if you have to. Yeah.
There's something, I'm not honestly a big David Goggins guy. He's just a little much for me, and there's a lot of like it's too all in on one area, and I'm like, you have no healthy relationships, no one wants to be around you. Like, cool. Anyways, without saying that, but something he does talk about a lot is that mental negotiation, and it's something I do fully believe is like there's a power that starts to come within you, and a confidence of when you make a commitment and that mental negotiation starts to come out. Or what, I have a friend that calls him like Doug or something, like he names it, but when that mind starts coming and says like, hey, I can do this later or whatever, it's like, no, I committed to this, and I'm going to keep my word to myself. And there's something that happens, like regardless of what's thrown at me, regardless of how I feel, regardless of if I can do it later, I'm going to do it when I said I'm going to do it. Like that's the mode I'm in right now, and I can't tell you how much power I feel. Like I show up when I said I'm going to show up, even if I didn't have to. I could have done it later, but I said I was going to do it now. And there's a new confidence that comes to yourself.
I do that for every single 6.9 billion people in the world, except for this guy right here sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Except for me.
Uh-huh.
Because somewhere down the line, I always thought you got to serve everyone else before you serve yourself. But I am learning more that you can't really serve everyone else effectively until you serve yourself first.
No.
How do you feel about that?
That's all I talked about today on the podcast I recorded for our own stuff.
It's kind of like the fountain thing, man.
Exactly. Well, it's the cup. Like us as leaders, we go around pouring into people. Like I pour into my family, I pour into my team, I pour into our clients. I'm giving. I want, the good ones at least. I'm serving people. I want to serve. I want to create an impact. But at some point, this bottle runs empty and there's nothing else to give. And so if we want to continue to make one, the impact at the level we want to, but two, let that last, like we have to step back, refill the cup consistently. And so taking a minute, even if it's an hour a day, mentally, spiritually, physically, to fill that cup so that I can pour out more. And so to me, it's the most unselfish thing I can do is to take care of my body because I have more energy. Like I guarantee you taking 30 minutes in the morning and eating some good food and moving your body consistently, the amount of energy expenditure the rest of the day is going to be way more than that 30 minutes took away. Like the energy, the mental clarity, the focus, what you bring, it's powerful.
Let's talk about food for a second. So I went to me and Brittany went to for her birthday. She had me go to the Art of Living place, and we did a silent retreat.
Yeah.
And all they serve is like vegan food. Like it's vegan the whole time. And it was really good. I was like,
there's some good stuff.
I was like really like
impressed.
It was vegan buffet. See, that was the only other problem, right? Like you can just scooping it on, man. But like I will tell you, I never pooped cleaner in my life. I mean, that was like I was flowing. Like everything was the body was regulated. Like the food was actually really good. How do you feel about like diets and like all these like different types of diets? Are you familiar with like vegan diets?
Yeah, we've got clients that are honestly like most people that choose to be vegan. Like there's some sort of other like.
Oh yeah, I could care less about the animals. I don't know. There's nothing.
Yeah, there's something else.
I'm not trying to save the animals. I'm trying to save Ben.
I think so. Here's the deal. Here's what I say about all diets. I think you should not prescribe or subscribe to any diet just because people say it's healthy. You need to know what your body needs. And so,
is there things that work together though that makes sense? Like if you stick with it, like in consistency, like like there's people in jungles they say live longer because that's all they use plants.
Sure, I mean, but there's also just as many people say that like people used to live way longer before and all they ate was meat. Like there's a lot of it's marketing, is what I'm trying to say. And so I'm a big fan. Like you could say that about keto. People argue.
I just know I felt, listen, I don't know if it was all the meditation I was doing the whole time I was there. I don't know if it was all the vegan food I was eating. But when I left that place after 3 days,
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you, man, my body never felt
Great.
better in my life.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's
I
a
was
lot of
doing
all
yoga.
of
I
it.
was doing yoga in the
Uh-huh.
morning.
I well, and it's probably compared to what you were eating, like way better, way more
Oh,
nutrients. Yeah.
yeah.
So all I had to say is there's plenty of health benefits to eating vegan. But what I tell anyone who asks me about keto or Atkins or anything is you need to get a determination of what your body actually needs. So that's why all of our
I
main
feel like
programs.
those are fad diets, though. I feel like
Yeah,
vegan's just like a lifestyle choice. I feel like
sure,
Atkins and keto, I feel like, are people that are temporarily doing something to like.
sure,
That's at least what I hear. At least the people
sure.
that I know that do Atkins and keto, they're always on
Uh-huh. But
every other month. They're on Atkins
what
and
I was
keto.
getting with that is like I have a natural iron deficiency, and so for me, I have to eat more red meat. Otherwise, I'm very low on iron, or I have to take an iron supplement. I would just prefer to get in meat,
I should
and
probably go
I've
get my iron tested. Hopefully, I have low iron too, because that way I can keep eating steaks.
so what I'm saying is like if you can get testing done for your body and know what you actually need, super important. Like another example is I we do gut health testing for our clients, and the last time I took a gut health test, the top two foods that it said do not eat was sweet potatoes and broccoli. So shocking, and I was like,
How
but
did
that's
you
all
do
I
that
eat.
test? Because my cousin's nutritionist out in San Diego, he hooked me up
Uh-huh.
to like a machine,
Uh-huh.
but like they didn't go inside my stomach. They just like sensed like the vibrations or something.
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't know much about that, but ours was
What do you do for your gut health test?
it's a blood sample and a stool sample, so you actually have to poop in a thing.
Yeah. So how do I get one
Yeah.
of those done? Can I get one of those done in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I mean, or I can send you one. Like there's companies
Yeah, I
that'll
can go
send it to
shit.
you.
I can go poop in a bag and I'll send it to your house
Yeah,
and
the
like.
one I did was an at home one. The last one. I think we have some lab ones too that we've done, but there's at home ones where they'll send
Oh,
you
I
a
want to
kit.
do that. I want to
Yeah,
do that.
it's cool. It'll give you a list of like superfoods. Eat more of these, and you'll feel great. Here's a list of terrible like don't eat.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
So this is like okay. Yeah, this is different than what he gave. He did not take blood and he did not take my poop.
his is probably more of like food sensitivity.
Yeah, I think that's what it
Like
was.
yeah, and so
And he gave me
there's
like a big old list of stuff. I mean,
uh
it's not in
there's people
California,
that
man.
do it
Those
with
guys,
like muscle testing too, where they'll put a certain food up against your skin and or a nutrient, and they'll like push on your arm, and if it's weak, then it's wild. I've seen it done. I've never done it myself, but people
all
rave
right.
about it.
So do the gut health test, and
Yeah,
then what? It's gonna come
hormones,
back,
gut health, like
and then like maybe curate some type of diet.
yeah,
You're a big proponent of like those like meal packs, right? To keep things easy for us entrepreneurs, right?
sure. Anything. Well, so honestly, in a perfect world, everyone would grow their own food and then cook it themselves. Like when it comes to nutrients and overall health, like that's the dream. However, never going to happen for me. Nor am I going to create the time for that.
I
Most
mean,
people
not in
won't either.
America. I
Yeah,
feel
not in
like.
America. So what I'm saying is like it's not ideal, but the more that I can have stuff done for me, the better. And so I think there's a couple good options. One is like you said, those prepackaged meal prep that are already portioned out. You just throw it in the microwave. Again, there's going to be some sort of nutrients that you sacrifice because it's prepackaged and all that stuff. But what I actually do now is I have catering trays that come to my house where a company will cook like instead of prepackaged, they'll cook like a
Yeah, that
almost like
sounds even better.
when you walk into Chipotle, like there's a whole like they basically would just like lift the whole tray of chicken out for you.
Yeah, they just give you like the big old foil tin, and
Uh-huh.
like you just hit off of it all week.
Yeah. So basically, in my fridge every Saturday they show up. There's 10 pounds. Well, and I split it with my business partner too. But we basically have like 15 to 20 pounds of meat between ground beef and chicken, and then rice, potatoes, veggies. And I'll literally walk in for lunch. That's why I had this plate right here. Is I'll take this plate, put it on the food scale. I'll just dump my 8 ounces of meat, my rice, my veggies, throw it in the microwave, eat it.
Yeah, it's like your little
Yeah,
version of your
easy.
own buffet that you have,
Yeah,
and you just like you just weigh it out.
correct. And so for me, it becomes super easy. Now traveling's a little different. There's
Yeah,
a
what do
whole
we do
different
on the
game plan.
road? Because like that, it really
Yep.
is. Like I think I could get in the flow of that, but man, like
Yeah.
I'm traveling like probably once or twice a month, man, and then I get so irritated when I screw up, and then like when I come back home, I like give up. It's like that's like
Yeah.
it's a recurring theme for me, and I got to break that pattern.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. One is you have to go in expecting not to be perfect and knowing you can't control every variable, but have some non-negotiables. Like I always do this. Like this is what I do. If I don't have this, here's at least how I can counteract. Like you have to have some knowledge and game plans to go around that. But there's
Mhm.
also a ton of practical tools. Like whenever I go to a hotel, I have immediately delivered to my hotel room a couple packs of pre-done protein shakes. Like they're in my fridge. And so I'll be at an event, a mastermind for 2 or 3 days, and like in between each meal or after a meal or whatever for snack, I'll go grab one of those. I like the Core Power Fairlife ones, and there's like 42 grams of protein in a bottle like this.
Yeah. You can
Yeah.
just you can just go to the store. You can just have it delivered to you. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's the thing to me. Like, guys like me and you, we have the money. We can do whatever we want with food. I feel bad for the people. I'm trying what happens to like people that like aren't as fortunate? Like how do they?
It's tougher, but there's still ways. Before I had a lot of money too. Like I obviously a lot is relative, but before I had money enough
before
to
you
do
can
this,
just spend like unlimited amounts on your food, right?
Sure.
Like,
there's still ways. It's understanding. So if I'm going to a restaurant, the first thing I'm doing is figuring out what lean protein source can I get and how can I make that happen? Like what's a chicken, a lean ground beef, a fish that's leaner, and how can I get that? And then where can I get a carb source? Do they have rice? Do they have potatoes? Like most restaurants, unless you're going to a pizza place, which even then, like sometimes they'll have a chicken salad or whatever. Like every place pretty much nowadays you can find something. So it's just asking, how can I get a lean protein? How can I get a carb source? How can I get some veggies? And then a lot of times you need to ask for, hey, can I get that no butter and no oil? Because they'll just douse it in butter and oil, which kind of ruins the point. So once you understand the generics, is like every time I go eat, I'm looking for lean protein. And once I get that, I'm good. And then I have protein shakes on deck to substitute for that are just prepared in between meals.
Well, this has been awesome, man. I mean, I know I gotta, I gotta get on this. I don't know why we just did all this on the podcast. I feel like, well, hopefully it helps somebody. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, like diet, just the fitness side of things is not complicated. When you get into overall health, the performance, and all the testing, that's where like it's even above my pay grade and a lot of stuff. Our doctors and dietitians tell me what to do there of how to fix those internal issues. But when it comes to just meals and movement, like it's not that complicated. It's just understanding some hacks to help yourself. Is like if I need 200 grams of protein, it's just a math game of reverse engineering. Like I'm going to eat 3 meals of 8 ounces of meat, which is 50 grams each of protein. So that's 150. And then I need 2 snacks to get the other 50. So for me, it's all I eat every day. It's 3 meals of 8 ounces of protein and then a protein shake and a protein bar. And I get my 200 grams and then just fill in the rest with the rest of my calories that I have left over, which I track. And so you can eat whatever you want as long as you hit those numbers.
Oh, dude,
so that's the part.
That's the other thing, dude, that I'm not wired for. Like I'm bad at even responding to emails on time. Right? That's why I have an assistant do that.
Sure.
I literally have people help me with almost everything I do. It's almost like I'm gonna have to tell an assistant, "Hey, I just ate this today."
You do it. We have clients that do that. They report their numbers to their assistant. And the assistant does it. So there's ways to do it. But what I'm saying,
if you're listening right now, you just became my health and fitness coach too.
Well, as long as you have like the goal is, and we talk about this, is almost like automating or systematizing your diet. Is like if I have everything show up for me and it's already prepared for me and my workouts are already scheduled on my calendar, it's like it just becomes a part of a system and I don't think about it.
It's easier than going to McDonald's and jumping in the playset.
100%. But what I was saying is, for as far as tracking, is you don't have to do that forever. Is once you can start to estimate,
you develop the habit, right? Yeah.
But like I can see amount of chicken and guesstimate.
Like. Yeah, you know what 8 ounces looks like. Yeah, and then you know what 10 ounces looks like. Probably you're probably like, oh, just give me a little extra scoop.
Yeah, seriously. So once you've done it for just even a couple weeks, you can start to estimate enough to say like, oh, I'm within reason. And it becomes a super easy process. So it's automated, it's systematized, and you can visually see it. Then, like I said, once the fitness side like that is taken care of, really it all becomes the identity piece. And if I can visualize, vocalize, vote, and put myself in that vicinity, that's what keeps me on track to the game plan that I set, which is super easy.
That's awesome. I ask, we'll wrap it up with that. I ask every podcast guest 5 questions. So here we go, rapid fire. You're going to be on an island completely by yourself. There's nobody else left on earth. You're going to take one book with you. What book you taking with you?
Has to be the Bible. I know that's the religious or the cheesy answer, but for me, that's the word of life.
50% of my guests say that. So I must either be attracted to biblical people or they know that's the good book. So the next one is, this is a little bit better one. You can take one movie with you. What movie do you take?
Oh, that is a good one. Man, I would love to say it's Gladiator, like a super manly movie. That's one of my favorites, but I think I would go with Inception, and maybe just the season I'm in right now. I need something to take my brain away that's an escape, and it's a mental thing. So if I can
There you
watch one
go.
movie, that'd
Well,
probably
that's
be
better.
it.
Well, because you can't eat food right now. Because so like.
Yeah, I'm still eating like 2,500 calories a day.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not
but you're
bad.
just not. But you're not eating. You're not eating. No, you're not eating nothing bad though. I can tell. I've been watching your pictures, man. I've been seeing you transform over Facebook. It's been wild. And
Appreciate it.
you weren't even like
No,
fat or a big guy.
no.
Like I'm just talking like you can just see you lean
Yeah, I
up,
mean, I
man.
went from like 13, 14% body fat to,
Yeah,
7
it's
ish
like
now.
God. It's like God's got like there's like a vacuum suction in there, and like there's a hose. They're just sucking. They're just sucking you a little tighter. That's all. Is what it's like. All right, so we did book, we
Okay.
did movie. All right,
Yep.
so restaurant. So this is an interesting question.
Mm.
You can pick any restaurant that you want to put on your island. What restaurant you putting on your island?
Oh,
You want to
man,
live long time, Co Taylor. Long
that's
time you want to live.
that's tough. I
It can
would
be super
probably
local.
pick Genghis Grill. So
Where's that at?
there's a place here in Tulsa that's it's basically just like a Chipotle but for uh like Asian food.
Okay,
But it's basically you basically walk in and there's this massive buffet of meat options and you scoop it on a bowl and then you go through a bunch of veggies and a bunch of carb options and then you take it up to the thing and they cook it for you. And so basically I can just create my own meat, veggies and carb
gotcha.
sources. So it's
And you
pretty fun.
walk in like WOK.
Ah, I like
You'll
that.
get that
Well
you'll get
done.
that later. You'll get
Well
that
done.
later. All right, and then you're allowed to take one vacation. You're allowed to go anywhere in the world for 7 days. Where do you go?
Mm. And this is not, I'm not still stuck on an island.
No, you can go anywhere in the world.
Okay. Um, man, I'm craving an island right now. And so I'd
Well, no, you
probably,
can go anywhere you want. Pretend like you're just somewhere like
sure,
it could be cold where you're at. I don't know, like, but you can go anywhere you want.
sure. No, what I'm saying is like right now, I would love to be at a beach. And so I've been wanting to go to Hawaii. That's probably next on my trip. So,
I feel like your
Hawaii or
sound is
Rome.
doing something. What's wrong with it?
I went to
What's
Greece.
wrong?
Was that?
I thought. Did you hear a buzzing sound?
Huh.
Man, that must have been on my end. All right, I hope that didn't hit the podcast. But anyway, all right. So where do you want to go? You want to go to Greece?
No, I'm saying I just went to Greece. And
Oh, you
so
just went to Greece.
I would say I was gonna say Rome because I love Rome, but I need a vacation on a beach in my life, so Hawaii is probably the choice.
Well, isn't Rome on a beach? Isn't Rome like on a coast?
Not Rome itself. Italy is itself, but Rome was not. Like Rome's a little more inland, from what I
Greece was
understand.
on like Greece is on.
Greece
Did you
was
hit any beaches?
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah.
Greece. That was last year, but I'm wanting a an island beach vacation again.
So where do you think it'd be?
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Or
And
I don't know, maybe like Bali or something like somewhere
there you
I've
go.
been.
Some even
That's
like
yeah.
some out in the
Bali
middle
sounds
of
like
the.
a good idea.
All right. Last question. You could spend 24 hours with one person. Who would it be?
Hmm. My dad. I would love to be able to have that experience together and thank him for a lot of things that he's instilled in me.
Is there any other questions you would have for your dad or ask your dad?
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of it would be around stuff now that I didn't know to ask then, like about being a man, about leading a family,
Mm.
about raising kids, about raising a son, like making decisions as an adult, like stuff that I just didn't know or didn't respect at that time. I think now would be the time that I, arguably would need him just as much as then because, being a grown man and needing someone to walk you through that.
Yeah, I didn't even ask you when you told me your dad passed. Like, was it quick? Was it instant? Did you just get a call sometime? Like it was.
No, so I was there. It was
Oh,
right in front of me, fell over, and passed. They say he passed instantly, but it was a full couple day thing where they were trying to revive him and went through these processes. And they said once they got him back kind of alert or awake, not awake, but they got his body revitalized, they said there was no brain activity. And so they're like, he's probably gone immediately. Yeah.
wow.
But right in front of me. Yeah. Fell over.
Well, you're an incredible human. I'm sure
Thank
he's
you.
incredibly proud of you.
Mm.
I've not. I don't think I can't. I don't know. I know a ton of young people. I don't know anybody as mature and as
Mm.
responsible and as well spoken as you. Like as well.
Wow.
Like I just feel like you're operating at a super high level. And for what'd you say you were 27?
28. I'll be 29 in
28?
November. Yeah. 28.
Like that's scary, man. Like, like pay attention to Cole Taylor, people. I feel like this is he's just getting started. How do
Well,
people find out more about?
it's the testament to the stuff I speak. The more you pour into yourself, everything around you grows. And so I've been on this crazy, dedicated self-development journey of how do I just learn and grow as much as possible.
I love it. How do people get a hold of you? How do they find you?
Yeah, Cole David Taylor on Instagram. So first, middle, and last name. So Cole David Taylor, Instagram, Facebook. We have a podcast called The Starting Line as well. And if you want to just check out our site, it's called thestartingline.fit. Any of those are great. But if you just want support and want to chat, I'd love to be able to pray for you, speak into your life, answer your questions. You can hit me up on Instagram, and that's probably the best way to communicate.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. And thanks again, everyone at home. If you got value out of this podcast, I really need you to like, subscribe, comment, leave some questions for Cole. If this podcast made an impact on your life, we want to hear about it. And remember, I'm only going to have one more episode. I'm going to be the guest, and we're going to kind of recap what we did the last 75 episodes and then kind of tell you what's in the future for the Big Fish Cares podcast. I'm really excited you guys have followed this journey, and we'll see you guys next Friday.
Thank you for listening to the Big Fish Cares podcast.